Delegation. What exactly does that mean? Legally, it means a Washington State licensed RN can have qualified nursing assistants perform a certain task in a designated setting. By having you perform these tasks, they are delegating their professional ability to perform a task to you. Once the RN delegates a task, they are still responsible and accountable for the nursing care of the client. So, it's important for an RN to trust that you know what you're doing. And on your part, when you accept a delegated task, it means that you are willing to perform that specific action in place of the RN. You need to make sure that you are given clear and specific instructions about what to do and when to do it. You should only accept a delegated task if you feel that you can perform it correctly and safely. It's a partnership, really. To help you understand your role in this partnership, I've invited Nancy Smith, an RN, to join me. Hi, Nancy. Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
Nancy, let's get right to the point. As I understand it, there are 5 conditions of nursing delegation. Basically, who, what, where, and when. We would say why, but it's pretty obvious that this is about protecting ourselves and the client we work for.
That's exactly right.
All right, then. Why don't we start with who? Who can delegate nursing tasks to me?
Only the licensed RN who's responsible for the client you're working with can delegate a task to you.
So not my supervisor, not the LPN or physician or the client's brother?
Not your supervisor unless that person is also your delegating RN. Nor should you accept a delegation from another RN who doesn't have responsibility for the client you're working with.
What about who can accept a delegated task?
Well, first of all, you must be a qualified nursing assistant.
Which means?
You must be either a registered or certified nursing assistant in Washington State. In addition, you need to have completed the education requirements for nurse delegation, taking this training and fundamentals of caregiving if you are or will be an NAR.
Right. After you pass the final examination, you'll receive a certificate of completion. Don't worry about the test. After you watch these videos and read your workbook, you'll be ready. Oh, we've got a caller. Beckett from Tumwater, you're on the air.
Hi. The other day I was asked to do something that I didn't really feel qualified to do. I did it anyway because someone had to, but it just didn't seem like something I should be doing.
Nancy?
Oh, was this a delegated task?
Yeah, it is, but the thing is I just started 2 days ago.
Generally, if you accept a nursing assistant position that includes delegation, you are stating your willingness to perform delegated tasks as part of your job responsibilities.
Which also means that you have the skills necessary to perform the task.
Beckett, did you accept the responsibility of performing this task?
Yeah, I did.
Well, another condition of accepting a delegated task is that you should never accept a delegated task until you believe that you can perform that task correctly and safely. You need to tell the RN your concerns, and you should go over it until you can do the task comfortably.
In fact, it is your responsibility to not accept the task until you can do it safely.
That's exactly right. Everyone involved in the delegation has certain responsibilities. The RN needs to determine that you have the skills necessary to perform the tasks correctly and without supervision.
Beckett, you also need to notify your employer or the case manager about your concerns. Check your policies for the appropriate chain of command within your agency.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So if I'm asked to do something, I need to make sure the RN has seen me demonstrate that I can do it?
That's right. For each delegation, the RN will give you specific written instructions on how to perform the task. The RN needs to train you on the job, showing you how to perform the task and ensuring that you can do it. The RN should only delegate a task to you when they're satisfied that you can correctly and safely perform that task.
So if I haven't received training from the RN on that specific task, I shouldn't do it?
Exactly, for your own protection and the safety of the client.
That makes good sense to me. What about the kinds of tasks that are delegated? I'm willing to bet there are laws about that too.
You're right, there is a law about delegated tasks and it can change, so refer to your workbook for the most up-to-date information. Some of the most commonly delegated tasks are administration of oral and topical medications and ointments, administration of nose, ear, and eye drops and ointments, administration of rectal and vaginal suppositories and enemas, dressing changes, urinary catheterization, blood glucose monitoring, and gastrostomy feedings.
And the tasks I can't do?
Nursing assistants are not allowed to do injections other than insulin, and you should not be asked to perform any sterile procedures or central line maintenance. You're not permitted to perform these tasks.
Sounds like a good policy. We've got another caller. Karen from Spokane, you're on the air.
Yes, thank you. I work with several clients who need their blood sugar checked on a daily basis. Can the RN train me on one client, and then can I do the task for others? Or does she have to provide me specific training for each client?
Good questions.
Thanks.
Nancy?
The answer to the first question is no. A delegation only applies to one client. Training and delegation must be specific for each client. But the delegating RN doesn't have to watch you demonstrate the procedure on each and every client. He or she may feel comfortable in your skills and can then delegate accordingly.
So I need to feel comfortable doing a task and feel I've been trained properly to perform it on that particular person?
That's right. And each delegation is specific to only one task and only on one client.
So if I have been delegated blood glucose monitoring on one client, does that mean the RN can delegate dressing changes on that same client?
Yes, but
The RN must go through each of the steps of delegation for dressing changes.
For that client?
You've got it.
All right, what about where? Where can a delegation happen?
The law states where delegation can happen. Just like with what you can do, the law can change. So you should refer to your workbook for the latest information.
How long does a delegation last?
The delegation of the task lasts as long as the client needs that particular task to be done.
So basically, the RN will periodically review the delegation to make sure things are happening according to plan.
The delegating RN can visit the client more frequently, and they may if the task is complicated or they want to be sure you understand how to perform it. You can call the delegating RN anytime if there's a change in the client's condition or if you have a concern and you want the RN to reassess the situation.
What if the client doesn't want me to perform the task?
That's their right. In fact, a delegation is a three-way agreement. It needs to be in writing and then signed by the client or their legal representative.
So before an RN can delegate a task, they have to go through all three of those steps?
That's right. They have to talk to the client or their authorized representative and get their written consent. Then they have to teach you how to perform the task. The nurse has to verify that you know how to do the task correctly and safely. They're also required to provide you with written delegation instructions.
That seems like a lot to do.
Well, people's health and well-being is a big responsibility. It's for everyone's protection, the RN, the NA, and the client.
We've got another caller. Teresa from Longview. What's your question?
What should I do if the doctor's office calls and changes a medication order over the phone?
You cannot take the order over the phone. You should immediately contact the delegating RN and your supervisor.
Can they fax it to you?
A faxed order signed by the healthcare professional can be used for immediate verification, but you should still contact the delegating RN before making any changes.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for your call. Communication plays a very big role in making this whole process work effectively.
Communication is key. Everyone involved has specific roles and responsibilities.
first of all, the client is informed of the care options. If the client agrees to have the task delegated, then the client or representative must give written consent.
What about roles and responsibilities of the RN?
The RN has 5 main areas of responsibility in delegation: assessing the client and evaluating the appropriateness of delegation, obtaining written informed consent from the client or authorized representative, delegating the task, supervising the delegation, and canceling the delegation.
Once a delegation task is in place, the RN has the continued responsibility of supervising and rescinding or canceling the delegation.
They want to make sure the client is getting the right care and then to cancel the delegation if they're not.
After the delegation is in place, the RN is still accountable and responsible for the client's care. The nursing assistant is accountable for following the delegation instructions. It's important that the NA performs the delegated task according to the specific instructions of the RN. In addition, the NA needs to continually observe the client for potential side effects of the medications, any negative reactions to the procedures, and complications from diseases. If you notice any changes, you need to report them immediately to the delegating RN.
Another caller. Mabel from Longview. Go ahead.
What if I've been doing a delegated task, but then decide I can no longer do it?
What are the circumstances? Do you feel like it's a safety issue, or are you just sick of doing it?
Well, what if I have, like a broken finger and I can't get a good handle on something, so that it might be unsafe for the client if I tried to do it?
Well, there may be circumstances which arise in which you are unable to perform a task safely. You can refuse if that's the case.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thanks for calling. Basically, it's a good idea to do whatever you can to see that the task is done. But if you can't, then contact your supervisor or the case manager and the delegating RN immediately if the client's safety is in jeopardy.
Let's go over that again. If you are refusing to accept a delegated task because you feel the client's safety is in jeopardy or you didn't receive adequate training, the law provides you with protection from disciplinary action. It's also okay to refuse a delegated task if a client is not cooperative or if they appear to be having adverse reactions. If this is the case, you need to call the delegating RN immediately to let them know what's happening with the client.
Be sure to know your in-house communication policy for reporting these incidents. A missed medication can be life-threatening in some cases. We've got another caller. David from Blaine, go ahead.
What if I go to perform a task and the necessary supplies aren't available? You know, like gloves or dressings?
Well, Dave, did you check under the kitchen sink?
No, actually, I didn't do that.
I'm just kidding, Dave. Thanks for your call.
Well, while lack of proper supplies is a perfectly valid reason not to perform a task, you really should make every attempt to get the job done.
If you can't do it, report to the proper person. Let's go over some other roles and responsibilities. The case manager identifies the need for nurse delegation on the service plan, makes a referral to a contracted nurse delegation provider, authorizes the payment to the delegating nurse, and assists the client to find a qualified nurse delegation provider. The home care agency supervisor schedules the qualified caregiver to meet the client's needs, supervises the personal care duties, and ensures there is a backup worker to provide client care. The employer or administrator has certain legal requirements to meet, like ensuring that the tasks performed are allowed by law, that the nursing assistant has completed all the requirements necessary for receiving delegation, that the delegation is completed correctly, and that the tasks themselves are performed accurately.
We've got another call. Jesse from Mount Vernon, go ahead.
Hi, I used to work for a group home in Ferndale, but now I'm working for an adult home in Burlington. The in-house policies are really different. Is there a right way and a wrong way to do things?
It is the responsibility of the employer or the administrator to set policies to provide the best client care given the size of the facility and the level of staffing.
You should have a very clear understanding of the nurse delegation rules and also the policies of the home or facility where you work as well.
So although the nurse delegation rules are the same, the in-house policies may differ from facility to facility.
That's right.
It is very important that you discuss the facility policies with your employer or administrator.
Make sure you understand the communication processes that are in place.
So things like who to call in case of emergency, things like that?
That and even minor things like what to do if you run out of necessary supplies.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
We've got another caller. Josh from OMAC, go ahead.
Hi, Sherry. Hi, Ms. Smith. My question is this. What if an RN quits and a new one comes on board? Does he or she have to go through all of the steps again?
Thanks for your call. Nancy?
New RNs can assume the delegating responsibilities if they know the client's condition based on their own assessment, if they know the skill level of the nursing assistant performing the delegation, and if they're familiar with the plan of care.
Okay, so the new RN checks the delegation plan, sees how the client is doing, and checks out the skills of the NA.
That's right. And the RN needs to notify the client and document the change in his or her record.
What if a delegation is canceled?
Once the delegation is canceled, the RN needs to document the cancellation and help to develop a plan to continue to meet that client's care needs.
When would an RN cancel a delegated nursing task?
There are a number of reasons an RN would find it necessary to rescind a task. First and foremost, if the RN thinks the client's safety is being compromised or if their condition is no longer stable and predictable, delegation will be stopped. The RN may also stop delegation if she or he feels that the condition of the setting is such that delegation of the task is difficult.
What if the client asks that the delegation be canceled?
Once again, the client or an authorized representative has that right. RNs take on tremendous responsibility when delegating a task. They really do want to make sure it's being carried out correctly.
They certainly do have a great deal at stake: their license, their reputation, and the health of their client.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, it really is about partnership. An RN and the NA both play a very critical role in the care and well-being of the clients.
Well, time is running out, but let's take a minute to recap. What do you think are the most important lessons, Nancy?
First of all, don't accept delegation from anyone other than the RN responsible for the client you're working with. Ask plenty of questions so that you understand exactly what you're supposed to do. Report any changes in a client's status immediately. Know and understand the process for how you communicate with the delegating RN. And finally, if you don't think you can do the task safely, don't accept the delegation.
Very good. Thanks, Nancy. That's all for now.